Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, and it is presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Hey, the iconic duo. No, not Ray or I, no. But it is the iconic duo, Ray, at Tim Hortons, and it just got more iconic. Get a classic donut for $1. A loony when you order any size, original or dark roast coffee, okay? So a classic donut for $1 when you order any size, original or dark roast. Now you can choose from, and I want your personal favorite here.
Yeah.
Apple fritter, Boston cream, the honey cruller, the old-fashioned plain, chocolate dip, and vanilla dip. I mean, it's always a classic way to enjoy your coffee, but in that grouping, which would be your go-to donut?
Decision each day coming up there between the honey cruller and the double chocolate.
Oh,
those are my two choices. It's a tough one, and it just you got to feel the day. You got to feel.
You
the
do,
day.
you do. So I think things change as you age too. Is that fair? Like I remember going through the drive-through years and years and years ago, and my mom would order an apple fritter. I thought, come on, like that's an old fogey's order. Who has an apple? But I love apple pie, and I love all things apple. But now, as I'm pushing into my later 50s,
yes.
I think the apple fritter, it's starting to appeal to me. That might be the go-to with a nice coffee.
Yeah, there's so many. Like I do like when Tim's got like less flavors or less varieties was better for me. Yeah. I'd be an all-out
fewer
freeze.
Choices. You're not panicking over. Oh, geez, that looks good. That looks great. Yeah,
and then I end up with 6, and then I'm like, No, but I think probably on a day-to-day basis, I go with the honey. It's a honey dip. I like. It
kind of reminds me. It reminds me of a story with my buddy Jeff. So Jeff is one of those guys who you meet on the weekend to watch football, right? And you're having some beverages. You order lunch. Well, I don't know. Are you a menu guy, or do you just what you want to have? Depending.
I
on
like the
where you
menu.
are.
I like
you
the,
do.
Yeah,
so
I like
I'm kind of now the menu can come in a variety of ways, right? You've got the big traditional menu, you've got a list of specials that are on a wall, like all of those things. So I peruse, and it sounds like you're that way too. Jeff is similar, but 9 times out of 10, he'll panic order and go, I'll have a pound of wings, hot, naked, grilled.
He orders the same thing?
Every single time. And then he's like, I'm just going to have the beef dip. Well, there's a big difference between a beef dip or a sandwich and a pound of hot wings.
Well, so he's aware that, like, if he wanted the beef dip, he could just say beef dip, right? He's aware.
Yes.
Like Jeff's sharp enough to put this together.
Yes, but his point is the words don't come out of his mouth. It's like you're standing there with all of these choices, and you just panic order. Just
give him a pen, Dregs. Give him a drag. Give him a pen. Tell him, give him one of the Delta pens that you're going to give me that I still haven't got yet. Those things better show up in. They better show up in Montreal, mister.
I have them.
I have them. Yeah, well, that's fine. You have them. Great, good. I don't. They better show up in Montreal. That's what.
Well, there's going to be a delay to the trip to the Four Nations. I actually think we're doing Wednesday in studio, and it has to do with location or something, and where we can actually be inside the venue. So I may not be there until Friday, but you for sure will have those Delta pens in your hand in the not too distant future.
Oh, good. You can hand them over when you buy dinner. That'll be great. Yeah. Can't wait.
Yes, of course. All right, let's get into the headlines. And obviously, we're going to start with the information, the news that broke from George Parros in the Department of Player Safety on Monday evening. And Ryan Hartman and Minnesota Wild is going to sit for a while, and he's going to forfeit a chunk of money. 10-game suspension for slamming Tim Stützle's head into the ice off the face-off on the weekend. Now, I thought Dops did a real nice job in their explanatory video of kind of telling us why it went all the way up to 10 games. And there are some who think that this is fitting. I thought based on an in-person, you're in that 6 to 8 game territory. So 10 games delivers a real stern message. And it makes you wonder, had Stützle been hurt on the play, like he was dinged up a little bit, but I'm talking about hurt, had to leave the game. Man, you're talking about a real hefty one. And aside from the act, which I want you to give your opinion on, it does speak to the history of this player. 4th suspension race since 2023. And I think in the average games, he's played, just over 660 NHL games. He's averaging some form of league-related discipline every 60 games. Every 60 games. So all of that boiled into the recipe, which starts with the actual act itself, takes you to that 10-game suspension.
Hartman plays with no honor. If it was 10 or 15 or 20, good, because he plays with no honor. If what he did, if you wanted to do that in a face-off, you could do that 30% of the time, because when your opponent's digging for the puck, right, when it's tied and it's in your feet, oftentimes the guy gets underneath you, right? Like his body leverage gets underneath you. You could drive a guy into the ice anytime you wanted to. Like in those scenarios, you really could. You just don't.
So you're not buying the argument that his weight was forward because he was losing his balance in the battle of the face-off.
Not a chance.
No.
Not a chance. Because if he was losing his balance, he would have reached out with his arms, not with one of them, to balance himself, to catch himself. But as it is, he drove his head into the ice. Sometimes like the explanation doesn't fit the video. I'm watching it and I'm like, that does not fit. I'm retired 20 years. It doesn't matter what it was like when I played. That would not have gone very well for him in the mid 90s or the 80s. Thankfully, probably that would not have gone. Put it this way. He would not be facing discipline, I don't think, every 60 games if he played in the 90s.
He would be self-disciplined on the ice, is what you're saying?
100%. That game, he can be a very effective player, right? He really can be, but he plays the game with no regard or honor for other players, and I hate it. I can't stand it when somebody gets suspended. You often hear, well, he's not that kind of player. You get suspended this many times, you are that kind of player.
Was there anyone as a centerman that you were fearful of? Not that you were going to lose the draw, but that you just knew there was something coming. Maybe you didn't. Maybe it was a slash on the laces. Maybe it was a stick in the, I mean, anyone that comes to mind?
Three. Yeah. Three of them. Mark Messier for sure was, if you win the draw and you win the draw, you turn around to see where the puck is. And if he felt like it, he would just bury you with a cross check because there was no penalties. Like, who was going to call that? So if you won the draw and you turned, you're always I don't know what everybody else did. I was always aware that could come. The other two played on the same team. And I was a rookie, and then through my early 20s, and it was in Quebec, and it was Dale Hunter and Paul Gillis, and I was like, it was like you might as well give the two of them a machete instead of a stick. It was savage in there. You come from junior, and we just take the face off. There it was like a freaking hand-to-hand combat just to get out of the circle. It was those guys made me nervous. They did, yeah.
I recall, and hopefully she forgot it because I don't think she ever employed it. My daughter was a centerman and I was coaching, and we were working on face-offs one time, and I was trying to coach her into this spin move, right? So off the draw, you spin, and you either get body position and full possession of the puck, or if you lose possession of the puck, you're in a good spot to just come down hard with the heel of your stick right across the laces. Like,
Sure.
like you have to do it carefully. You can't take a two-hander, but a nice, hard, crisp tap with the heel of your stick across the laces, that girl's going to have
But
a
honestly,
problem for about 30 seconds.
like a lot of things they did, like they put those markers on the ice, right?
Oh, yes.
Basic,
Yeah.
basically to keep people away from, as our favorite word, we'll use it again, keep them away from all kinds of shenanigans that go on in there.
Shenanigans, Ray.
Yeah,
Shenanigans.
yeah.
4 significant trades in the last number of days. Well, since our last episode last Thursday. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time thinking about the JT Miller trade to the New York Rangers, and we don't need to break down every element of it. I mean, the principles are: Hedl comes to the Vancouver Canucks, Mancini comes to the Vancouver Canucks. That first round draft pick, which obviously Patrick Galvin had been peddling with Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So they bring in Marcus Pettersson, and Drew O'Connor. So all things considered here, how much better do you think the Vancouver Canucks are after all of that?
Well, there's no question they'll miss Miller. I mean, how can you not, right? I did the game on Saturday, and
He was good.
showed up. Yeah, he showed up there at like 3 in the morning, and played 12 hours later, and he was great. And the Rangers, I said in the broadcast, he's everything that the Rangers are not. And this is why I think he's a really good fit for them. He's big, he's mean, he's physical, he's in your face as a player, and he's loud. They're a very quiet bunch. And so I think it's a really good fit. The Canucks, though, the game they played, I flew back Sunday and went to the game. That was as engaged a game as they've played start to finish in a while. I'd say in a couple of weeks, but it looked different. And now some of that could be the newness of the first game, and we'll see how that rolls through. As they play tonight against Colorado. But like Hedl was fantastic. Marcus Pettersson was terrific. O'Connor had a real good game. And so, you can't, as you mentioned, you can't look at it like one trade. It's kind of all one trade. They've got a chance to kind of reset a little bit. Just think, 11 times they've lost after regulation. Their goalies have the second worst save percentage in the league. Like, they're right on the cusp of the playoffs. And so while it's been a debacle of a season with all the nonsense that's gone on, if in those two things they're just league average, they're 6 or 7 points better, easy.
Yeah.
And it's not even a discussion. However, this is where they are. I think a lot of this now just shifts over to Pettersson. And in the first 2 periods, he was not very good. The third period, he was awesome. And so how you go from there to there, I don't know. But there's a chance for a lot of people to be put into positions they've never been in. And we'll see how they respond.
And I resist the piling on temptation here of Elias Pettersson. I do. But I also think, and I think, you just explained it very astutely with, 2 bad periods, 1 excellent period. Vancouver needs him to be a top player. They need him to be a consistent top player. And if he is, then maybe the trade rumors around him will eventually fade. But, in the short term, maybe that takes less of the pressure off this team. They're going to acquire another center, or at least they're going to try and acquire another center. And they've got the currency now, right? They've got cap space. But does that center become less of a need, the quality of that center, if Petey is playing the way that you saw him play in the third period the other night?
It was a top end period. It really was. And this is a team they beat in Detroit that was on their way to winning their 7th straight game. It's not like they were beaten up on a bottom feeder here.
No.
So, Detroit wins the game in overtime, and they hung on, and Pettersson had the puck the whole time in the third period. But it's not just him, though. If Hedl can play to a level that gives you comfort, and Pius Suter's got 14 goals again, which, by the way, is one of my great stats that I love to use. He's played 4 full years in the NHL. He's got 14, 14, 15, and 14 goals. And
know what you're getting.
You know what you're getting. And he's got 14 right now, and he just went through a 22-game blip, or I don't know, it's more than a blip, ditch, where he didn't score. So what if he could be your third center?
Yeah.
Like what if he'll like the urgency to make that trade right now comes off the table. Now you can probably be a little more patient, maybe, to let the pieces settle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you have until June 29th to make a decision on Pettersson. Right?
Yeah.
The ball game changes on July 1st. And
yes.
So between now and then is they've got to have a trust, and Pettersson has to have a trust that the player that they're talking about is 90-point Pettersson, not 67-point Pettersson, right? Like that's what they have to determine between now and the end of June.
Couple of other trades I don't want your opinions on. Calgary and Philadelphia. So the Flames trade Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelletier to the Flyers for Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. And more recently, Dallas. Good work by Jimmy Neal here, acquiring Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci from the San Jose Sharks. And Dallas didn't have to give up a young prospect. Now, they gave up a first and a conditional fourth, which turns to a third if Dallas makes the Stanley Cup final. But I like the Calgary deal more than what Calgary got as opposed to what they give up. And it's hard to argue with the two pieces that the Stars bring in.
So Calgary also gave up a second, I think, in that. Did they not, Dregs?
Yeah. Well, was it? Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So when players are in a place for a while, as Farabee and Frost were, you don't look at them the same way as a new team would. Like Craig Conroy and the Flames are looking at these players that are young, that they see potential in, they see growth in. Frost, I don't think he's been over 40 points. I don't think. Right around there. Farabee's had one real good year, and then he's fallen back this year. But Calgary looks at them and says, these are young players. We're excited to get them. And Philly goes, we got that second. And we got a guy that's going to play for us in Pelletier. Kuzmenko was a bit of the money thing, right?
Yes.
To even out the cash. So Philly is trying. It's been really odd since Daniel Briere took over there with Keith Jones, is that I think they've been more competitive than people thought they might be, yet they're really looking to the future, right? Like it's not. And so this trade makes a little bit of sense to me because they acquire the pick more than they've got 22 or 23-year-old players. Calgary looks at it and like, somebody else has already done some of the development work. We might get players that ready to springboard. So I like that Calgary was able to acquire players that are younger, because they're two really. I think this is a bit of a oddity where they are this year, Calgary.
Yeah.
But because their real plan is, a year or two down the road when these young guys kind of grow together.
Right.
These are two players that might accelerate that for them.
They could.
And so when Craig was on with us, he told us they were looking for a center. It's not like it was bad, it was a surprise. And then moving on to Dallas, anytime you don't have to give up a player, that's awesome. When you're in this, especially when you're in the window Dallas is, right? So they're going to get, if you think about it, they get Ceci and Granlund. They're going to get Marchment back. If he's not going to play right before the break, he's going to play right after it. Heiskanen's probably a few weeks away. Like those are more additions to a very good lineup. That's a good team. They're
really good.
Really good team, and they needed a defenseman. I wouldn't be surprised if they went and got another one either.
Yeah,
like they've got all kinds of cap room because they because they finally got Sagan to LTI, but they've been playing $9 million under the cap since Sagan got hurt. It's been really impressive, I think.
Yeah. So many teams looking for that defenseman that you attach to the potential of the Dallas Stars. And I would throw Edmonton into that mix. I mean, we could name probably a dozen different clubs, right? They always
Right.
want depth D and they always want depth forwards. And there is a primary need for centers with some of the better teams in the league. Edmonton definitely in the market for a penalty killing forward. But there's some speculation around their goaltending. You get to game 7 in the Stanley Cup final. You don't win it, obviously. But if you were Stan Moment, would that be an area of concern for you? Just the combo that they have in Skinner and Pickard in Edmonton.
Um, it would be not, I wouldn't say a concern, but it would be something I'm looking at and balancing with.
Yeah,
but Dregs, I think I would be looking at, okay, if I could get this defenseman, I'd rather pay that cost for that defenseman than a goalie. Because you could say, oh, I'd like to upgrade the backup goaltender. Pickard's got a hell of a record. But if you upgrade the backup goaltender, your chances are you're just paying more money for a guy to sit in a ball hat. Because that means you're still hitching the wagon to Skinner. If you decide Skinner's not it, well, that's a massive gamble at this point, right? Like, I often think about Ryan Miller, who was a fantastic goalie in his day. And he played all his career in Buffalo. And St. Louis had an excellent team. And they were always second place in goal. So they go make that big deal. They get Ryan Miller in there. And it just never worked. And he talked about after how difficult it is to go to a new team for a goalie. I had never thought of it. I just think of it as just get in there and stop the puck. And he's like, well, the shots come from different places. The coverages are different. And I'm like, wow, I never even really thought of it that way. So to go get a new goalie that's a big risk. Like Colorado did it in November.
Right.
To do it in March would be, that would be, I think it's far more likely that they acquire a defenseman than they do a goalie.
I agree with that. And when you're looking at that, who are we talking about? I mean, you can look at the pieces, guys like Jari who've been waived and all. John Gibson rumors out of Anaheim have been there for a couple of years minimum, right? It's not like you're going out and acquiring a huge upgrade on Stu Skinner. Those guys just aren't available. So it's a bit of a gamble every which way.
Well, here's the other part to that. You don't just get to go get the goalie. You've got to give something up. And if you're looking for a difference maker in goal, that's really, really expensive. If you're looking for an upgrade as a backup, I don't know. Do you really need to do that? Last year, as you mentioned, they get to game 7 and Pickard won a game in the Vancouver series. Right? Remember, he lost one and won one, and then they went back to Skinner, and it gave Skinner a chance to reset things. And I mean, do you need to upgrade your goalie that over a guy that already did that for you once? I don't know.
You use the word expensive. It will be an expensive summer ahead with cap projections coming out late last week, climbing north of $113 million in year 3 of the 3 supplied cap projections by the league and the Players Association. So 95 and change for next year. And look, pending unrestricted free agents have earned that right. And they've earned the time that they want to take before they feel comfortable engaging in a meaningful negotiation with the club, right, on an extension. So, we're talking about the obvious guys here, and Mitch Marner, and if Mikko Rantanen doesn't sign in Carolina, but even if he does, the agents, of course, were waiting for the cap projections. Why wouldn't you? And it's interesting because after the Mikko Rantanen trade to Carolina, there was all kinds of criticism and opinion. Mikko Rantanen can't command this amount of money. I mean, Artemi Panarin makes X dollars, and Rantanen isn't better than all of that, right? What I'm reminded of, though, Ray, when those arguments come out, and I don't know if you feel the same way. Yeah, but Artemi Panarin signed that contract when it was a $79 or an $80 million salary.
Right. Yeah.
Like, The salary cap for next year is $95.5 million. Mikko Rantanen and John Tavares, Mitch Marner, go down the list of all the free agents, are entitled to try and negotiate whatever percentage of that cap they want. So it's difficult to compare player to player when you're looking at deals that are signed, well, 3, 4, 5 years ago now.
Well, I was told once, when you sign a deal, the moment you sign it, be happy, be satisfied, and then know that people are going to pass you. And that's just the way it happens, right? Like, each deal is a new benchmark around the league, in particular today, where if a name player signs, he resets the market for the next player. And so if somebody passes you, that's like, like when Nate McKinnon was shocked, right, in the initial days following the Rantanen trade, I think what he was trying to say is, and I think he said it actually, is that if he made more money than me, I don't really care, because I signed back, I signed a year ago. Like, it changes constantly, right? When the first salaries were $5 million, like, I remember, we were all, oh my God, I can't believe the guy's making $5 million. Pretty soon the money itself doesn't necessarily matter, as opposed to how it fits percentage wise in the cap. That's really the only thing. It's the only thing that matters. And there's going to be some big numbers this year. I am laughing a little bit, not laughing, I guess amused by everybody assuming that all the players' salaries are going to go up. That's not the case.
Some are going to get wealthier, not all.
Yes, not all. And the guys that are going to get squeezed, same as always, are going to be the guys in the middle. And the next real reset, couple things to think about here. The CBA's up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Also, when these revenues projections are made, which help give them the limits of the cap, the Canadian dollar is going to have a factor in this too.
Oh boy, yes.
And so you go up one side, and right at the top of the mountain is escrow sitting on the other side.
Yeah.
And so remember how bitter the players were when they had to get into escrow, and they're just out of it. They don't want to go back in it. So it's really it's a dance that's way above my capabilities to figure out, but it's something that is going to be talked about soon.
I'm surprised there wasn't more noise. I did a little bit of reporting on it on Friday. Just competitive balance is a term that we're going to hear a lot, right? Because what you can't have moving forward is a two-tier league. And I'm talking about clubs here. You can't have the New York Rangers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the best teams, the high revenue teams, spending $113+ million because they can. And then, even Colorado, one of the richest owners on the planet, maybe he doesn't want to spend $100 million. Now, Winnipeg probably can't afford to spend $100 million. Ottawa, so what does that revenue share model look like? And will they truly tangle with that geographic tax equalization debate that is never ending, right?
But you brought up 2 points here that are not easily solvable, like not by a long shot. And there's plenty of opinion on how to do it and what you can do and what you should do. And that's nice. And then you got to get the other side to agree to it. Like these are two really messy things that are sitting there, right? Yeah. They're really, really messy. And I wouldn't get all stoked up about the $113 million yet, because that's 3 years down the road. But I'm sure the smaller markets take note of this, and they're like, yeah, that's great. I'm glad it's going up there. We're not going there.
Yeah.
Right. Like we can't. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. You might be interested in this as we wrap up the Tim Hortons headlines. Occasionally I'll receive information which outlines gate receipts and where teams are slotted on a month-by-month basis, right? So when I look at gate receipts, net of taxes using local dollars, so Canadian dollars too, Let me know if you're surprised by any of these. I'll only read the top 10 teams. Toronto number 1, Rangers 2, Montreal number 3, Vancouver number 4, Edmonton 5, Boston 6, Vegas 7, Seattle 8, Chicago 9, and Calgary 10. That's gate receipts net of taxes. So
yeah, Calgary.
Anyway.
Calgary surprises me.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have had them. I wouldn't have had them in there. I don't think. But,
yeah, I just again,
it's interesting, right?
It is interesting, and I don't think anybody listens to this podcast to get any sort of financial advice or break down what revenue sharing should look like.
If they are, don't.
Yeah, there's been some poor choices and decisions made over the last several decades. Anyway.
Yes.
All right, Raymond, those are your headlines. Thank you to our good pals at Tim Hortons. Ask Ray and Dregs anything. Send us your questions on X and Instagram at Ray and Dregs, or on the website, rayandregs.com. Hey, if you're a skilled tradesperson or construction professional looking for work in Western Canada, Aecon wants to hear from you. Aecon is a North American construction leader and proud to be one of Canada's original industrial contractors. They're building some of the largest multi-year industrial projects in Western Canada, and you can be a part of it. They're looking for skilled tradespeople, construction pros to join the Aecon team and start building what matters today. Join Aecon. Send your resume to trades@aecon.com. Oh, we have a surprise fill-in host. There he is, Subi, Chris Samunia, because Ryan was everything and makes his podcast hum from a techno perspective. There he is. He's also a pretty face. He's not just talented with buttons, Ray. Look at that guy.
Zuby, this is a big opportunity here. I mean, we don't need Rashog here weekly. We really don't. So, I think you got the goods. I really do.
It is a big opportunity. It's like a Div 7 goalie getting called up to play in Div 5, and I'm gonna really embrace the opportunity here and try to put my best foot forward. All right, so let's get right into it, because I got a little surprise I want to get to at the end. So let's go to Twitter or X. Kyle Ball on X says, what would you do with the Sens' current goalie situation? Ullmark returning has the Sens sending Levi back to the minors despite his great numbers. What do you want to do there with those three currently, Ray?
I'm going to pray that Ullmark's healthy. I felt when they signed him, he had the chance to be as big a difference maker as anybody that signed in the summer. And it's been a really ragged year for him. He can't get around the bend health-wise. And Merrilainen has done a kind of out of nowhere. He played his first game here in Vancouver. He's got 3 shutouts. He goes down because he can, right? Right now, there's nothing to be done. If Ullmark's healthy, Merrilainen's got to wait his turn. And if he's not healthy, then you're looking at hoping that Merrilainen can carry your load. Because how would you know? I mean, he's brand new. And Forsberg's the guy whether people in Ottawa want Merrilainen and Ullmark, you're not giving up a goalie. Like, if you put Forsberg on waivers, you lose him. And so there's no chance that's happening. That sometimes the contract status makes the decision for you.
Sure. And look, anytime you lose your clear number one for an extended period, which Ottawa has in Linus Ullmark, your depth in that position is going to be tested. And the market was at times clamoring because Forsberg was kind of all over the place. Merrilainen, the expectation organizationally is he will be maybe a really good NHL goaltender at some point. So, I'm sure Stales is looking at options, not in goal. He's looking at defense. He's looking for maybe some additional experience and help up front. But they kept telling all of us to report on the Ottawa Senators, our goalie depth is fine. And that's the way it looks now, at least for the moment.
Okay. Also over on Twitter, H.E. James says, do you see a scenario where hockey broadcasts would have a former NHL official as a go-to guy like they do with NFL broadcasts to question officiating decisions or missed calls? Now, I feel like someone might have dabbled with this a little bit.
That happens all the time, doesn't it, with Dave Jackson?
You frickin' Canadians. Watch your ESPN, would you? Crying out loud. Dave Jackson's awesome. He's on our broadcast. And the answer is yes. And for the love of it, the best part is you don't have to make a decision on the air to say something about something you might not have the goods on. And so anytime there's a review, a possibility of a review, what the hell can be reviewed, Jax is there for us. And oftentimes we'll be talking about a play and my producer will say, Jack says this isn't reviewable. And so we know. And then lots of times there's a review and we go, Jax, what's going on here? And he's communicating with the war room. It's an enormous help for us, and he's really good at it.
How many times per game do you think, on average, he comes into the broadcast? Now, you would use him on background, as you just explained, but does it take a pretty big event, like a match penalty or a rescinded major or something like that, to bring him into the broadcast?
No, generally a goalie interference that's a guarantee, because and I'm more than happy to have him try and decipher that.
Absolutely.
Of course, the reviews on high sticks, a major penalty that can be reduced, offsides, those sorts of things. What's really cool is he'll often talk about why an official might not have seen the play. And like he said, well, if you look at the official's ahead, he's looking over his left shoulder. There's three players between him and where the event is. And you're like, oh, I never really saw that. I mean, all I see is he's 10 feet away. I didn't see that there's three guys in the way. And so he'll explain.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really helpful. So I'd say on average, 1 to 2 times he's in, like on the air, but behind a couple more for sure.
Nice.
So I guess the question is, Dregs, why don't we have it on the Canadian broadcasts?
Well, that is a fair question. We used to do it in studio years ago with Carey Fraser. Remember that, Ray? And that was back in the day when we had the national package. And let me just tell you, hockey operations hated it.
That's why.
Goalie, no, I mean, look, the end of the day, you have to present and broadcast the games with editorial judgment and integrity. I think it maybe spoke to the history of Carey Fraser and the battles that he had with Coley Campbell and some of those guys back in the day.
Okay, this one comes from the Beer League locker room. And so the Hockey Hall of Fame has a 3-year waiting period for players to qualify. It was last waived in 1999 for Gretz to get in. There's 10 players all time that they've done it for. And they claimed after Gretzky, they weren't doing that anymore. They weren't waiving it anymore, other than for, they say, sort of humanitarian purposes. So let's say this, though. Of Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, do either one of them get it waived to go in, or both? Or would it matter if they were to retire in the same offseason? Would that affect if one or the other or both had the 3-year waiting period waived to go into the Hall of Fame?
I don't think they would waive it. I don't think they should. Only because what's the rush? Like it sets a crazy conflicted precedent that so we're talking about Ovie and Sid. What could the next one be? Who's the next one that, he's right there to it's a conflict that doesn't need to be there. I'd like to see them waive the 3-year retirement thing for Jágr, because when the hell's the guy going to retire? Right? Like I'd like to see him. I think it would be an amazing day. But still he's got to retire. And that to me is the more crazy one is him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I don't think it should be waived either. And If you ask Sidney Crosby, I think Sid would go, no, I'm fine. I can wait 3 years. I'm fine. Sid never wants to put himself ahead of anybody, certainly in that category, because you're talking about, some of the greatest players who ever played the game. Here, I had this mentioned to me the other day, and just quick, because I want nobody will be surprised, but just a response here. If Alex Ovechkin breaks Gretzky's record this season, I mean, who's betting against him at this point?
Right.
Games are ticking away here, but who's betting against him? If he breaks the record, is he done? He's not coming back next year.
I've never thought of that.
I didn't either, and it was suggested by me, not someone close to Ovie, but somebody who's pretty high up in the circles of the league.
Yeah, I don't know what he would need to do. Like what would be the motivation to come back?
Unless you feel like you're right there again of contending for a Stanley Cup. But
right.
Maybe he does that too.
I was going to say, what if he does both? Then
the record and wins a cup.
Wouldn't that be something? That would be the ultimate mic drop. Poof. See ya.
A legendary exit for sure. Okay, let's go. I'm going to do a little rapid fire, and if this stinks, I'll edit it out. So
okay.
This is me going rogue here. That. This is not sanctioned at all by Ryan Rashog or anyone else.
Good.
All right.
Good.
Okay, rapid fire. These are going to be these are hard-hitting, very important questions we're going to get to.
Okay, I can imagine.
So first one, you have to change the roll on the toilet paper. You use the last of the toilet paper. You have to change it. Are you putting the new roll on with the toilet paper coming out overhand or underhand? Dregs?
Under. And I'm finicky about this stuff. Not only do I make sure we all have a favorite bathroom in our house, right? We just do, wherever that is. I go to everyone else's bathroom throughout the house. So when one roll is at the end, I make sure that I replace it under, and then I make sure and I go around the house to make sure that all of the other washrooms are well supplied.
Oh, aren't you something? Me, I just put it on however it goes on. I don't notice. I don't care. The one thing that I really do enjoy is two teenage boys, and it always seems to be one roll is done. The next roll is put on top. Like you can't put it on the roll. They put it on top. And there's always a roll on the floor, which is where they put their phone. I'm like, freaking guys, man.
Resourceful. That's what that is.
Yeah. And the roll on top of the tank is like being used from that position?
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like nobody's... Because it would be too hard to take it off.
Yeah, of course it would be.
Yeah. And Dregs, your underhand on the roll, that's wrong. It's got to be over.
I don't really care one way or another, but I give it a choice. I would probably, I had to think about it, and I would go under. Yeah.
Okay. Another very important one. You're loading the dishwasher. Cutlery, handle down or handle up?
I put handle down. Over years. I've been worn down, and now handled. I've always had handles up. Now it's handles down. And what I don't like is when amateurs get involved in loading the dishwasher.
Oh, yeah.
It's there. I'm filled with a house full of amateurs. Just leave it. I'll get it in there. It's all nicely put together. And one thing I can count on, though, nobody will put the dishes away. I can count on that.
Or rinse them or any of that, right? And I'm with you. I'm the dishwasher dude. I really am. And it comes close to a full-on domestic if I notice that Holly or somebody has gone into the dishwasher and is rearranged. Because I like the plates go here, your full dinner plates, and then they get smaller in the back.
Okay, Dregs, I'm going to interrupt you.
Somebody comes in and adjusts. I'm taking names. I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, but what about when the bowls are put in and they're not square? They're just like thrown in, and they cover the room for 3 plates. Like amateurs.
I agree, and I go handles up because I'm the guy that puts everything in and I take it all out. And normally when I take it out, it's like 6:30 a.m. and I don't want to stab myself in the hand.
And the correct answer is handles up, because you also then, if someone is doing it the other way, they're touching everything, the part of the utensils you eat with your hands.
I get it. I was worn down on this, Zuby, so I just say the hell with it. It's just,
All right, here's a hockey one. You're commissioner for a day. You get to change one rule in the game. What are you changing, Dregs?
You know what? We kind of touched on it with an earlier question, and Ray gave us the full explanation of what Dave Jackson does, on the broadcast with ESPN.
Yep.
I'm surprised that the goal or the referees aren't necessarily involved in the final decision making of goalie interference. That's a decision that's made by hockey operations. I would change that. I would allow it's no different than the match penalty or the major penalty. Well, the officials ultimately make that decision. They're guided by whoever the supervisor is, but they're not told. They're just, here's a view of this, here's a view of that. Yeah. I think the same should be done with goalie interference. I'd change that.
I only get one rule, Zuby.
If they tie together, you can do more than one.
Well, I'll tie them together. They have one has nothing to do with the other.
Okay, go for it.
I get the obvious challenge and pushback to this, but I'd like to go to 76 games. Because I think what's going to happen next year, I mean, we're already seeing how the schedules are compacted this year. Next year, they might as well play double headers. I mean, like they're going to jam them in with the Olympics. The second one is I've thought this for a decade. I think it would be really helpful for the fans and the players and the teams, the media. I think the rules are too complicated. I would start at page 1 of the rule book. I'd have a couple of current players, couple of retired players, couple of current refs, couple of retired refs, and I'd start and go from page 1 to page 8,040,000 of the rule book, whatever's in there now. And there were rules in there that they counteract each other. Some guys think the rule is this, but it's actually that. I think a tightening up of the rules would make the game more efficient. Redefine what is video review, and because some things you can review and some things you can't. Just redo it. It would take one summer, and you would. My line is that this is like the frickin' tax code. At one point, people did their own taxes. Now you can't do it, and and that's the rule book in hockey. It's like it's too confounding, I think.
Okay, last one. Desert Island movie. You're in a castaway situation, and a DVD player and a TV floats up on the beach. They still work. And you get to choose one movie now to watch for the rest of your life, the rest of your days here on the island. Now, it's not necessarily your favorite movie. It's your most rewatchable movie.
Oh.
Where are you guys going?
Blue Lagoon, Brooke Shields. I snuck into that movie when I was like 14 because it had an age restriction. I think you had to be 16 to get into that movie.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I learned some stuff. I learned some things that day.
That's an interesting pull. I don't know. See, Dregs, I'm so much more mature than you.
Okay.
I would say if I've got to rewatch the movie over and over and over, it's going to be. I'm terrible at this. I suck. It's going to be one of three. It's going to be Usual Suspects, The Sting, or Snatch.
All beach movies, by the way, Zuby.
Well, I didn't expect you to go with the beach.
I'm not going to go.
It's rewatchable. It's not necessarily related to being on the beach, but that's where your mind went.
Why do I want to bring a beach movie? That's going to be helpful, isn't it?
Well, he said Desert Island movie. That's what took me to Blue Lagoon.
You're on a desert island.
Oh, sorry. I don't know.
Zuby, sorry. Good question. Two terrible answers from both of us. Although I kind of like Dregs' answer, I got to say.
Yeah. All right. That's it for me, fellas. Yeah, I think we're done.
That's awesome, Zuby. All right.
Zuby, thanks.
Well, next time we'll-
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks
Beat
for
it,
having me.
Rashad.
It was fun.
Yeah. We'll just have to trim about 14 minutes out of it, and
Yeah,
we'll
no
be good for the next one.
That's my other
All
job.
right. There he is, Chris Amunia, pinch hitting for Ryan Rashog on Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. Okay, Raymond, you're in BC. Where are you this week? Last week, you were all over the map, my friend. I don't need to tell you. You lived it. Where are you this week?
Yeah, I'm going to studio in Connecticut tomorrow.
Oh, little panel action. Nice.
Yeah, Cammy, I'll take him out in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a dog whimpering and whining. And
Yeah,
woke the whole
yeah.
house up. I'm going to Connecticut tomorrow for studio Thursday. Friday, I go to Boston for Vegas and Boston on Saturday. I come home Sunday, and Tuesday, I go to Montreal for Four Nations.
Oh, very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
So, well, I asked somebody yesterday, I'm like, hey, what are you doing in Four Nations? And they're like, oh, I'm going to Hawaii. I'm like, oh. I'm going to the game.
I'm going to Montreal.
Yeah, it sounded really good, Hawaii, all of a sudden.
We'll talk about this as we get closer to the event, but I think it's going to be competitive. I hope we see the physicality that, I don't expect you're going to see guys running each other. You wouldn't see that normally in today's version of any international event. I just hope there's some bite. I hope there's some
Dregs,
bite.
Somebody asked me this week, they said, you think the players will play hard? And I was like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Like, I just assumed they would.
Yeah.
And
same. That's why I bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised to get that comment that would even be a concern. And if you want what it could be like, go watch some clips of the 96 World Cup and watch Keith Tkachuk and Adam Foote try to cut each other in half.
Let's hope for more. I don't think
it'll be that. But man, I hope it made me go, oh man, I really hope it is great. I think it will be, though. I really do.
So do I. Yeah. I mean, anytime you have Sweden, Finland, Canada, US, obviously, I mean, there's just age-old rivalries there. All right, buddy. Well, travel safe. Look after Ollie, and look forward to reconnecting Thursday, probably Thursday this week.
Thursday it will be. Have a great couple of days, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm going to shovel snow.
All right. I did that already this morning, and there's more on the way. All right. Yes, thank you to all those who continue to watch, to rate, to follow us on our YouTube channel, and especially thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make the pod possible. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, and thank you to Acon. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.